Hello, so today's video will just be a very quick update to my review of the lingopie subscription service. Fairly shortly after I made my last video on this, they brought out the Netflix integration with lingopie, and so ever since then I have been kind of wanting to see what that was about. So this is kind of an integration with Netflix. That's how they frame it, that they have content that they are able to do dual subtitles on that are Netflix originals. Now, in the promotional material for this, it kind of sounds like you can use lingopie to watch them, but if you actually read it, and once you use it, this is a browser extension similar to existing things that are also browser extensions. So this one does have a Safari and a Chrome extension. I kind of tried them both. They look identical to me. So very, very similar to existing free browser extensions. So I wanted to compare the primary one that is out there that is language learning with Netflix and this one, because this one is paid. You can pay for language learning with Netflix. You get additional features if you do that, but there is a free version that is extremely useful. So I did want to compare, are these higher quality subtitles? Is the experience of using it that much better that it would be worth paying the extra for? Bearing in mind that this is only available for specific Netflix original things, whereas the other ones I've never encountered a show that it didn't work for. So these screen grabs and videos aren't the best because I don't want this video to get copyright claimed and taken down. But hopefully it's enough that you can see the difference between them. The lingopie subtitles are much, much cleaner. You can tell that they were, done and hopefully probably QA'd in some way to make sure that they line up. It's a manageable amount of words on a single subtitle. They coincide with each other. Whereas pretty often with the language learning with Netflix extension, the subtitles, like the translated subtitle, is much longer, and so several subtitles will go past while the one subtitle is still on the screen, if that makes sense. So that may or may not be something that really, really bothers you when watching. I don't love it, but it doesn't bother me a ton. And then obviously I was curious about whether the subtitles were translated better. And unfortunately, the only language that I am advanced enough in to be able to gauge this is Spanish, and they did seem to be virtually identical, like quality-wise to me. I watched a few things and tried to watch them over again with using both extensions, and they were different. Like, it's not like they were, using the same translation, but barely, and they both seemed equally fine to me. But I mean, again, Spanish and English are very, very similar languages. It's, you're probably generally going to hit on very similar translations. I know that in some of the advertising for this, I think it might be a little bit outdated. They do say that lingopie only has this launched in a few languages, but from what I could tell, they do have something available from Netflix in every language that they offer. And so I think that they are really, really proactively adding these. So their catalog will probably be increasing quite a bit, but I think that it's always going to be Netflix originals from what it sounds like. I presume that they are going to stick with Netflix originals for licensing reasons, like so that people all over the world have the same show options, but I don't know, that's just speculation on my part. A very, very minor thing that I noticed when using the Chrome extension, and I assume it's the same with the Safari extension, is that you cannot go full screen while using it. I don't know if you can with like a keyboard shortcut or something like that, but when you're using the learning languages with Netflix thing, the little bottom corner full screen button is exactly the same. It's not like it doesn't disappear, but it does disappear with the lingopie extension. So, I do prefer to watch in full screen, so it was just a weird thing to me. But again, you may be able to still go full screen, and I just am not familiar with it. But yeah, overall, it is a much cleaner interface. The extension clearly was coded, to be very nice and user-friendly. The script on the side looks very nice if you have that option turned on and, scroll through. The language learning with Netflix one is a little bit clunkier. It's a little bit harder to turn things on and off. You do get a lot more, options and a lot more freedom with that clunkiness, but it's a little bit like the Apple versus Android thing of, do you want less freedom with a cleaner interface or more freedom and maybe not quite as much user friendliness? I think that this is a good option, especially if you already like lingopie, you already want to watch shows on there for sure, then this is a great addition to their offerings. For me, it did not change anything about my opinion. As soon as I knew that it was a Chrome extension, I knew that I was not going to be wowed by it, because for me, my primary reason that I'm not excited about using language learning with Netflix, even though I love that service, I will always recommend it to people, is that I prefer to watch things on my iPad. I prefer to watch things on devices that are not my laptop. And while I do watch things on my laptop, in order to use that service, the thing that would have drawn me to something like this would have been integration with the app. That would have been something I would have been very interested in, because I am at a stage in French where I am still trying to watch things with both subtitles, and I sometimes, in my laziness, don't want to watch anything because I don't want to go to the trouble of using my laptop to watch it. But if you already use a computer to do most of your watching, then this will be a non-issue for you. I did have a few people asking in my previous video about how the Netflix account thing works, and because it is just an extension, you do just log into your Netflix account like normal and then turn the extension on. When you turn the extension on, it does prompt you to log into your lingopie account. I assume that it stops working if you don't do that, or I don't know if it just leaves the prompt up, I don't know, but that is how the account works. You do have to have an active Netflix subscription in order to use it. I haven't looked around extensively this time, but from what I can tell, the things that I said in my last video all are still true. For one thing, this is again very minor, but you still cannot navigate the iPad app. I can't, at least, in landscape mode. It does seem like they've been adding material, but some of the things like on the main page in the top shows were the same. So I do think that they do add more material, and if you are a Spanish learner, then the video that I just made recently talking about RTVE Play, there actually are multiple shows on here that I recognized from that, so that is something that they clearly, try to get the rights to some of those shows, but primarily, obviously, what I wanted to try out was the Netflix. So hopefully this has been informative. If you have questions, feel free to leave them below. I may or may not be able to answer them, but thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.